And now it's my joy and honor to welcome Harold Rosen here today. Harold is a community interfaith educator living in Ladysmith on Vancouver Island. He teaches elder college courses on comparative religions and civilizations. He's a coordinator of a provincial project, Sharing Light, a multi-faith resource manual for BC educators. And he's the author of Founders of Faith and Eye to the Ages and Justice, Divine Gift, and Human Capacity. We're so grateful to have you here today, Harold, sharing about Ridván. I turn it over to you, and I will pop up our shared slides here today as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Dorlee. I'm
Mhm.
so grateful to the Living Interfaith Sanctuary. I happen to know how hard it is to sustain multi-faith groups, and I'm very impressed that Living Interfaith Sanctuary has done so well for so long, and its prospects seem bright. Can we, yeah, stay? I want to stay on this first question
Okay,
here.
perfect. Yeah.
How can we all get along? I've been asking myself that question literally all my life. This question is always hovering above me, whether I'm listening to the news or in a small group or praying or reading or doing some sort of project. How can we all get along? I want to offer both a Baha'i and a multi-faith perspective on Rizvan. Okay, let's go to the second slide. This question, how can we all get along? One Baha'i reply might be by building unity with respect for diversity. And of course, that's very, very difficult. But I think unity and diversity is a key to what we need to do all over. I'm going to just read, there's 25 slides. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. I'm hoping that stays within the limits and leaves time for comments and questions. I've been a thinker and philosopher all my life, a seeker of wisdom, pursuing truth, beauty, and goodness. I've looked for truth, beauty, and goodness in many places, including religions, spiritual traditions, worldviews, cultures, nations, service agencies, fellow seekers. I might also add in the sciences and in the humanities. Third slide. I've been intrigued with questions like these. How can all religions get along? What do religions teach about truth, beauty, and goodness? What would the founders of major religions have gotten along if they met face to face on the stage of world history? In other words, would ancient indigenous holy ones and Moses, Krishna, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah, would they actually appreciate and support one another had they met? I'm convinced from about 20 or 30 years of research that they would have gotten along because they would have seen themselves as on the same divine team, educating humanity. Did they all teach and embody the ideals of love, compassion, service, wisdom, justice, unity, and peace? It seems to me they all taught these things. Okay, fourth slide, another question. Why do religions differ if they all teach truth, beauty, and goodness? That is, if they all teach universal moral spiritual principles or virtues. A Baha'i reply might be that each religion had a distinct historical time, a distinct regional culture and social context, a distinct developmental stage and capacity. And you might also say they had a distinct complementary theme. For example, Jews have emphasized law, Hindus devotion, Buddhists compassion, Christians love, Muslims submission, and Baha'is unity. All of these themes are complementary and not contradictory, it seems to me. Okay, next slide. If we ask how are the major religions related, a Baha'i reply would be that all are from one divine source. All are part of humanity's spiritual education. All are adapted to their own setting. Each religion fulfilled the previous one, and each founder prophesied the next one. In other words, religions are like chapters in the same big book, links in the same chain, colors of one divine light, and stages of one spiritual process. Slide 6. What did Baha'u'llah contribute to the sequence of revelations? A Baha'i reply would be the theme of unity, That is, divinity is one reality despite the many names we give to divinity. Religion is one sequence of revelation. Humanity is one family with earth as one home. Next slide. If we ask what were the deepest hopes and highest aspirations of religious peoples worldwide in the middle of the 19th century, we might note that indigenous traditions envisioned a hoop, that is, a circle of bonding of all hoops, making for world unity, and they envisioned rainbow nations or tribal integration within each nation.
Jews longed for and foresaw swords turned into plowshares and the earth full of the knowledge of the Lord.
Christians intensely anticipated the return of Christ, a new heaven and a new earth, all things made new.
Muslims anxiously awaited the earth shining with the glory of its Lord, the day of resurrection and renewal.
And Chinese people remembered the ancient promise of their sage kings and of Confucius, looking to the grand unity, the great peace, when all will contribute to the common good.
Hindus glimpsed what Krishna had prophesied, the new golden age, the era of restored righteousness.
Zoroastrians envisioned what Zoroaster promised, the final restoration, the triumph of good over evil, the kingdom of heaven on earth.
Buddhists awaited what Buddha had predicted, a new Buddha and friend of all, the pure land, abounding in awareness and compassion.
And I believe, and the Baha'is believe, that all these prophetic images point to our current millennium. What was Baha'u'llah's context in the middle of the 19th century? His title, Baha'u'llah, meaning glory of God, provides clues. He'd been supporting the Bahá'í cause in Persia for 19 years, since 1844. This Bahá'í cause was directed to fulfilling the promise of Islam, bringing the day of renewal, and preparing the way for the promised one of all ages, the one who would usher in the process of world unity and lasting peace. If we ask, what does the celebration of Ridván itself commemorate? 163 years ago, in 1863, in Baghdad on the Tigris River, in a garden called Ridván, or Paradise, at this time of year that we are now occupying, from April 21st to May 2nd, Baha'u'llah made three momentous declarations over a 12-year period. What were these three great announcements? He is the one awaited by the Babis and by all other faith traditions on earth. He's the manifestation of God, that is, the prophet or divine educator for this age, which will last at least a millennium.
He is the physical force or the sword the physical force or the sword may no longer be used to defend or promote faith. Therefore, investigation and persuasive reason must now be used to solve all problems.
And thirdly, he pronounced that new divine light has now regenerated all of creation, both visible and invisible reality, a divine springtime. These pronouncements are very, very important and deep, and I'm glad that Baha'is, revisit Ridván every year and have 12 days to ponder some of these themes. So let's say some more about this. What does all this mean? Divine education for humanity, again, is being progressively renewed through the Baha'i revelation.
And that military force will gradually be replaced by global consultation and international governance.
And the world's spiritual transformation has begun. We now have better access to the higher realms of guidance. This can be expressed as arts, sciences, services, earth care. In other words, cooperation between peoples and between fields of expertise will establish an ever-advancing global civilization. So Ridván celebrates and lifts up for all to see the advent of humanity's spiritual maturation process, the coming of the promised day of God, the new millennium and the time of rainbow nations, humanity's co-fashioning the kingdom of heaven on earth. However, Baha'u'llah did not promise that this day of God would be painless, nor that it would bring about magically a state of fixed and final perfection. Baha'u'llah did not say that this transformation would be attained without great effort and sacrifice, for humanity has been given much, and therefore much will be asked of us. Baha'u'llah did teach that in this day the sword would be replaced by utterance, force will be replaced by reason.
We have annulled the rule of the sword as an aid to our cause, and substituted for it the power born of the utterances of men. Unsheath the sword of your tongue from the scabbard of utterance, for therewith ye can conquer the citadel of men's hearts. We have abolished the law to wage holy war against each other.
So Dorley just shared something that could be called the new peacemaking. Uh, yes. And can we go to 16? Yeah. And those three pronouncements I mentioned, I want to give you a very short handle on them. New peacemaking is one way of putting the first pronouncement, that we would solve problems by utterance and by persuasive reason. New guidance, Baha'u'llah did declare that this day of new revelation would endure at least 1,000 years, followed by another divine messenger.
Whoso layeth the claim to a revelation direct from God before the expiration of full thousand years, such a man is assuredly a lying impostor.
So Baha'u'llah is saying, in addition to new guidance, in addition to new peacemaking, we also have new guidance that'll last at least 1,000 years. And now slide 17 talks about this third great pronouncement, the new creation. Baha'u'llah did promise that in this day of God, a worldwide regeneration will unfold.
Through the movement of our pen, we have, at the abiding of the omnipotent ordainer, breathed a new life into every human frame and instilled into every word a fresh potency. All created things proclaim the evidences of this worldwide regeneration. This is the day in which God's most excellent favors have been poured out, the day in which his most mighty grace hath been infused into all created things.
And I happen to think that this pronouncement about worldwide regeneration is the most unfathomable of all the things that Baha'u'llah taught, but the most exciting. It seems to be saying that the spiritual realm has been revitalized, and because human beings are open to the spiritual realm, we're going to get a lot of new good ideas. There will be new inventions, new arts are going to bloom. And I think someday when they look back at the middle of the 19th century, they'll see that humanity's global consciousness began to accelerate, and that showed up in a lot of good ways. Okay, let's look at slide 18. Ridván marked a time of great joy as well as great sorrow in the early Bahá'í community. After his 12 days in the Garden of Ridván, days filled with joyous visits from all ranks of common people and dignitaries, days when he shared roses and wisdom messages with his followers and the multitudes, he, Baha'u'llah, left Baghdad with about 70 of his family and followers to Constantinople, to which he had been summoned by the Turkish Sultan. There was great joy, for the Promised One had declared his station, and a new divine springtime had begun. And there was also great sorrow, for Baha'u'llah was departing, never to return during his lifetime. I want to reflect on this. I was, mostly a logical person most of my life. The idea that we can feel joy and sorrow at exactly the same time, it used to be, I couldn't understand that. And as I've gotten older and wiser, I now realize we can feel emotions that are very diverse at the exact same time. I think the arts are an example of how feelings are combined, even though they contrast very, very sharply with each other. So this 12th day of Ridván had this theme of joy and sorrow, the marriage of joy and sorrow, as Baha'u'llah was departing, and yet a whole new world had begun, a new potential for humanity. Okay, slide 20. Yeah, one of Baha'u'llah's special gifts to humanity was his son, Abdul Baha, a title which means servant of glory. He was the successor, interpreter, and exemplar of every Baha'i virtue. It was Abdul Baha who carried the Baha'i faith and message of world unity to Europe and North America, sharing messages like this.
In the eye of the Creator, all his children are equal. His goodness is poured forth on all. He does not favor this nation nor that nation. All alike are his creatures. This being so, why should we make divisions, separating one race from another? Why should we create barriers of superstition and tradition, bringing discord and hatred? All men are of one family. The crown of humanity rests on the head of every human being.
Yeah, slide 21. Can you move it along, Dorley? Yeah.
I don't know. Can you see it now? Slide 21, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Abdul Baha, from a Baha'i perspective, is an ambassador to humanity, and he showed how we can all get along. You know, I try to be a diplomat in the multi-faith community and in all my work. So Abdul Baha was a diplomat or ambassador to all of humanity, showing how we can all get along in everything that he did. So he's an important model for Baha'i to the rest of the world. Here's how we can all get along according to Abdul Baha, embracing unity while respecting diversity and building ever wider communities, making the great transition from national to global sovereignty toward an ever advancing global civilization that is a world of justice, prosperity, unity, and peace for everyone. Slide 22. An indigenous vision seems especially relevant to the Ridván theme. Black Elk, a revered Lakota Sioux holy man, was born in 1863, the very same year as Baha'u'llah's Ridván pronouncements. In a vision of this new day, Black Elk prophesied.
I was standing on the highest mountain, and I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one Mother Earth and one Father Sky.
Next slide. Black Elk saw that the peoples of the world would unite. He saw that in this great transition, many hoops would become one world hoop. That is, all peoples and nations, rich and poor, red and white, yellow and black, east and west, north and south, will be united. Next slide. So yes, indeed, something transformative happened 163 years ago in the Garden of Ridván, namely the declaration of humanity's promised day, an infusion of greater moral spiritual capacity, our collective community building process toward the great peace sought by humanity throughout the ages. Last slide. This is part of Baha'u'llah's Ridván prayer. Glorified, immeasurably glorified art thou, O my beloved.
Thou hast made all things to be, the revelations of thy handiwork, and the repositories of thy knowledge, and the treasures of thy wisdom.
I yield thee such thanks as can cause thee to forgive all sins and trespasses, and to fulfill the needs of the peoples of all religions, and to waft the fragrances of pardon over the entire creation.
Give us to drink of the river that is life indeed, whose waters have streamed forth from the paradise of Ridván.
Thou art the great giver, the ever forgiving, the most compassionate. Thank you so much.